Well, Nigeria began a fresh democratic journey in 1999 as a democratically elected civilian government took over the reins of power. Now, coming from a history of military governance with all its strengths and weaknesses, the return of democracy was celebrated by Nigerians. It's been 23 years, and those celebrations were short-lived as nationals struggle for life, hope, and fulfillment. Nigeria is yet to fulfill its democratic promise, with the nation now more divided than it has ever been. Political solutions still seem the only possibility, as every election brings hope, but hardly lives up to the billing. At 23, how well has Nigeria's democracy fared? What is the hope for the future, and who are the proponents of Nigeria's democratic journey? Welcome to VSA. I'm Sulaiman. After Nigeria's return to democracy in 1999 following the decision of General Abdulsalam Abubakar to hand over power, a general election was held in the country. Olusegun Obasanjo, a one-time head of state, became Nigeria's president after defeating his closest challenger, Olufalaye, in the 1999 general elections. Obasanjo spent 8 years in government as he became the first Nigerian ruler to rule in the military and democratic era. He was succeeded by Umar Musa Yar'Adua, but after 3 years in power, tragedy struck. Yar'Adua became the first democratically elected president to die in office. His vice president, Goodluck Jonathan, succeeded the former Katsina State governor and ruled Nigeria for 6 years. Jonathan handed over power to Muhammadu Buhari in 2015 after becoming the first sitting president to lose an election and willingly hand over. After 8 years of Buhari and 23 years of democracy in total, not much has changed. Despite early promises of El Dorado, the country is broken from within as a system of governance places power at the center, a system Nigerians say has pegged the country back. Now, this journey is taking a new course from 2023 as the 6th general elections are to be held. We know the candidates now, the antecedents of majority of them, and what they may have for Nigerians. Joining me to unpack Nigeria's 23 years of democracy is Daniel Bwala, a lawyer and member of Lincoln's Inn, and of course with me live in the studio, Dr. Tokunbo Pearse. He's a PDP stakeholder and convener, Reset Lagos. Good to see you, Dr. Pearse.
Good to see you.
I'm happy you're here, and again, glad that we've started coming back to normal after COVID-19. So the whole era or the whole culture of doing virtual is almost dying. But again, 23 years down the line, you've been one Nigerian who's always given his thought on issues and development on the continent, especially in Nigeria. What would you say 23 years of democracy meant for you?
We've been at it for 23 years, and unfortunately, the influence of the military that was there for so many years, from the coup of 1966 to 1999, really, never really faded away. I think that that is where the crux of the matter is, the foundation of the problem of developing democracy. The military mind is not trained to respect, observe, practice democracy, which is really a policy of give and take. It is a command structure that the military understands. And everybody you talk to now, virtually everybody you talk to now, will tell you that The problem with Nigeria right now is the 1999 Constitution. That Constitution is a military constitution. Too much focus on the center. Everything goes to the leader and nothing to the federating units. For instance, one of the most destructive parts of the Constitution is the way that it has basically strangulated the economy. Basically, a lot of the mineral resources in states, even geological survey, is under the exclusive list, locked up, controlled only by the federal government. Ondo State, for instance, sitting on the third largest deposit of bitumen in the world.
In the world?
In the world, cannot use the bitumen to develop its community, its neighborhoods, its state, because you cannot explore and develop and market bitumen without permission, authorization from the federal government. So if the federal government is not interested, does not have the time, for whatever reason, as you know, the federal government, everything is so much tied up at the top. So Enugu zone is sitting on the 9th largest deposit of natural gas in the world. In North Central, Northeast, Northwest, you have minerals that go. You have phosphate, you have uranium, you have copper, you have gold, well, so many things. Bauxite. Lithium was just discovered last week in Kwara State. Huge numbers. Top quality, one of the best in the world. You know what lithium is used for? Making glass, aluminum, batteries that will power laptops and electric cars. I mean, we have everything but the Constitution. The military influence in our politics is the albatross of development in Nigeria.
We have everything but the Constitution. Now let's bring in a lawyer. Daniel joins me live from Abuja, Nigeria's capital. Daniel, good to see you and thanks for your time. It's 23 years and the question many are asking, as they say, happy democracy there, is how has Nigeria's democratic journey been so far in the last 23 years?
Well, thank you for having me. I know that almost about every year when we come to celebrate the Democracy Day, there is always an issue of assessing whether or not we've made progress since we got our independence. And there is a lot you can unpack when we discuss the history, trajectory, and the progress so far. You can look at it from both sides. And either way, I don't think you'll be wrong. If you choose to look at it from the point of view that we have not made progress, you will have a lot of things to really point at and say, this and this are the proof that we have not actually made progress. And I hold the view that we have not made progress. If you're looking at it from the optimistic point of view, you can as well point at one or two things to say, well, we may not have arrived at where we intend to go, but we are certainly not where we used to be. And you would point at one or two things to say, a nation like ours, a heterogeneous nation like ours with diversity of tribe, languages, religion, and in fact, with the way our politics has evolved over the years, the way politics is being played from the point of view of religion, politics is being played from the point of view of regionalism, then you can say ordinarily a country who is experiencing this should not have come to the level where we have come to. But in a way, we've made progress. But is there anything to celebrate? Sure, there is something to celebrate. One is that we are still one, because with the kind of problems we're encountering as a country, there is no reason to suggest that by now Nigeria ought to have been divided or that Nigeria ought to have disintegrated. So this may be one thing to celebrate. And then number two, the very fact that we are still together as a country, even though it is more of a lip service than in reality, which is why even our politics today is dominated by issues that ordinarily should be right behind us as we advance to look at progress and development. But there are 1,001 things that we can look at and say, look, we have not made progress as a country. We have, number one is leadership. These natural resources that my brother mentioned, they are fantastic things that actually, if we explore them, Nigeria should not be where we are today, because we have countries of the world that do not have these natural resources. So what they have to do is to tap into human resources. And now it has now become a common cliche where it is said that the biggest investment in life and asset is not beneath the ground but above the neck, which is to say that if you have people with brains, then you can turn the economy even if you don't have natural resources. So we don't have any excuse if you look at it from this point of view of natural resources or point of view of human resources. And we have countries in Asia, countries in Europe, countries even in some parts of Africa that we can point out to say they don't have the kind of natural resources that we do have, and yet they have been able to advance. So me, if you ask, I would say the problem is leadership, because although the Americans in the past 10 years came up with a proposition that institutions are the ones that develop country and not individual. But if you look at it, it is still one fact that we have to address, that it is strong leaders that build the institution that will then preserve the country. Because without a strong leader to develop institution, you can never have an institution that will last beyond that leader. From 1960 till date, we have always had this leadership problem. Leadership problem at all levels, not just in government, leadership problem in religion, leadership problem in education, even in our area of business. Somebody said recently, and I believe him, most of the people we call wealthy men in Nigeria today, their wealth is supported by tax evasion and supported by corrupt system that government confer privileges on them.
I'll come back to you, Daniel, so that you can expatiate on that. And again, three key things you've raised here. You've talked about regionalism. You've also talked about the leadership recruitment process. And of course, and one key thing which Pearse highlighted earlier on is the hangover of military rule in Nigeria and in our politicians or leadership. Let's bring this to him, because you've said something about regionalism without using the word, because you were talking about the constitution, which is hindering regions or states in this case from actually tapping into the resources, as highlighted by Daniel. Daniel has said, look, we have both inhuman and, of course, natural. But Nigeria isn't anywhere near those big nations.
I think we should, if we get something clear, we may be able to move toward finding solutions.
Absolutely.
When the barrister said it's leadership, I put it to you that if you bring the greatest leader in the history of mankind to Nigeria today to utilize the constitution we have, he or she will fail. So it's not so much about the leader. It is the law that governs the leadership.
Sorry, I don't mean to butt in here. Don't you think the leadership is because of the leadership, absence of good leadership? That is why we're still riding on this constitution.
Well, that's part of it, because we need to review the constitution. Some people believe we should just tear it up and write another one, because it's a military constitution. In a democratic situation, it will not work. It has not worked. And the military is not just the constitution they gave us. In other words, they gave us the roadmap. They gave us the law. You understand me? And we're a country of laws. You cannot do anything outside of the law. And so if the law is guiding you in the wrong direction, you're going to go downhill. And that's what's going on with us as a country. So, and it is not only the constitution that the military gave us. The military gave us human involvement. They have never left the democracy. If you look at the strongest people in government now, the most influential people in our government since 1999 have been these same military men. The president of Nigeria today is a military man. It doesn't matter if he dons Babariga and puts away the uniform. He's still a military man, trained all his life to be a soldier. He's not a Democrat. That's part of our problem. So they don't want to change the law. It is only when you change the law. So I agree to some extent that until we have leaders who are strong enough to change the law, and in the situation we have, the kind of structure we have, the president has so much power. That is why it is only a president, in my own opinion, who is committed, determined, able, and understands the power of restructuring this country before we can make any progress.
Let's bring in the lawyer again. And Bwala, you know, the Constitution is one that not just Tokunbo Pearse, but a lot of Nigerians have always talked about, and they still think, you know, specifically that the 1999 Constitution is no good. Let's hear you on this.
Right. So I appreciate what Mr. Pearse said. You know, it is interesting sometimes when subject of the Constitution is mentioned. Why I'm saying that is because you can have counter and a counter argument around that. So if you say our Constitution is deficient, there are countries that don't even have Constitution like the United Kingdom, and they're able to advance. If you say it is a military, there are countries that are dictatorial. When Gaddafi was alive, you need to see that country and how developed that country was. And yet it was a dictatorial country. If you say from the point of view of the laws, that our laws are pointing us to a different direction, I'll put this to you. I was privileged to be a consultant, part of the consultant for constitutional review in this ninth assembly, and they have not been able to pass everything to law. We would have been able to see some of these concepts that people have advocated, like the restructuring. But let me even tell you parts of restructuring that were signed to law, and yet we have problem because of leadership. You remember Section 121, sub 3 of the Constitution that gave power, autonomy to the state judiciary and the state assembly. It's constitutional. It was amended. It is restructuring, devolving the powers where the powers are expected to be devolved to. So the state judiciary should have independence. The state legislature should have independence. That is restructuring. Has it been implemented? No. The governors came together, went to Supreme Court and challenged that decision. And we got the outcome of the interpretation of the Supreme Court that the president couldn't do that. Is that not a leadership problem? But before the judgment of the Supreme Court, there were governors that had even started implementing. We give it to Wike that everybody criticized him for being vulgar. But Wike began implementing the provision of Section 121 sub 3. Leadership, leadership, leadership. Everything rises and falls on leadership. And you look at it in our government today. In Nigeria of today, we always point at, for example, the president. Thankfully, the president will go, another president will come. But the framework of our constitution, as it stands today, has given more powers to the governor than the president. What have governors done in their respective states? For example, a state that has 1 billion devoted for staff salary or for security vote, and there are no serious insecurity problem in those states, what stopped that state from devolving a greater number of that amount to build infrastructure or to promote that? A state that, for example, has a maximum advantage in the area of education, what stopped them from improving the educational sector or system in those states? We talk about other aspects of infrastructure in various states that we don't see. And yet every day you hear of allocation. Paris reform was given back to those states. All we heard was that it entered voicemail. And the way the thing is structured, people don't even look at their states. Everybody looks at the federal government. They look at the president as though the president is the alpha and omega. But government is local, and the people are in the local government. The people are in the state. It is leadership. So let's say my brother Pearse said, even if you bring the most advanced leader of the world to Nigeria, he will not be able to effect a change. Let me give you a graphic example. It was expected that when Buhari took over the government, he was going to bring reformation. And the first few years of Buhari's administration, he was actually moving in that direction until he became entangled in politics with governors that they have now dragged his hand backward in almost every area of government. Now, have we not seen within the framework of what we are talking about that even in Nigeria, there are certain governors that distinguish themselves as a standout governor? Look at Lagos State. Look at the way Lagos State is developing. Lagos is the 5th largest economy in Africa, far above other countries in Africa, a state in Nigeria. And Lagos State, look at Rivers State, for example. Look at the way the governor brought about infrastructure in Rivers. But look at some of the other states that are even APC-based states. They are as impoverished and devastated as can be. Leadership, leadership, leadership. Everything rises and falls on leadership. This is my humble opinion.
Let me bring in Tokunbo Pearse here again. And you know, I was actually going to ask about Reset Lagos. Now you're talking about states and regions. Bwala, you've taken it down to the area I'd love Mr. Pearse to come in. And it's, you know, he's just mentioned Lagos, but there are others who still think that in the midst of all of that argument, Lagos hasn't actually scratched the surface. Now, talking about dividends of democracy now, how have we fared?
Let me say that the barrister is right. Leadership matters. As we said, if we have a president, for instance, who believes in restructuring, Nigeria will be restructured. We don't have one now. Buhari said he didn't want to hear anything about the 2014 confirmed report, the recommendations. He didn't want to be briefed on it. He didn't want to know anything about it. So he didn't want to do any restructuring, changing things, reset Nigeria. So leadership matters. But the barrister mentioned something very interesting. He said, the United States, that is institutions that develop countries, not individuals. I believe that sincerely. That is not to say individuals don't matter. Leadership doesn't matter. They matter, very important. But if the institution is weak, for instance, Nigeria has good laws, very strong laws, but no enforcement. Therefore, the laws don't mean anything. If it was not for the institution and the enforcement of the laws that exist on the books in the United States, Donald Trump would have turned America into a banana republic, because he would have overturned the results of Biden's victory in the last presidential election in America. It is the going back to the institutions. We must build institutions before we talk about. Look, a lot of people are good people, good leaders. Sometimes, when they get into office, even the example the barrister was giving, like at Buhari, when he got in there, everything he wanted to do, he couldn't do because the government, this structure will not allow him to do it. That's part of it. But talking about leadership, again, so this is not a one-track issue. So I agree with the barrister. And talking about leadership, whenever we have an election, it is an opportunity for the people to vote for people, candidates who can actually bring about positive change. Don't get sentimental. Vote for leaders that can help you to improve quality of life in your own constituency. That's where the issue of leadership comes in. So when you're talking about dividends of democracy, nationally, we have had good leaders. The only time, I think, even during the military, the leaders, some of them they didn't have the capacity, they didn't have the training, but we've never had a leader in Nigeria who is a known crook, for instance, a known brigand, and vote for that person. No, Nigerians, they discriminate a lot. When Buhari got in, his image was that of a corrupt-free, no-nonsense military man, strict and very honest. That was the image that was built for him. So Nigerians voted for that image. They may have been deceived, but that was the image. So what I'm saying is Nigerians try to vote for presidents that they expect to do the right thing for the country. We have never had it this bad. So when we talk about dividends of democracy, the breakdown in the economy, our GDP has gone down like never before. Direct foreign investment is the lowest. The Nigerian currency is at an all-time low. We're now about 600 naira to the $1. It's a scam. It's unfortunate. But things have never been this bad. So we cannot say that Nigeria has always had bad leaders. I beg to disagree on that. This leader right now is the worst in the history of Nigeria. By the grace of God, 2023 will usher in a better leader who will move things progressively for us, help us to secure the nation, end insecurity, make economic progress. And when you appoint people, let it be on merit and let it take into consideration the diversity of this country so that we can begin to trust one another again and believe in our unity again. So leadership matters. We have not done well even in Lagos. You know, most people who are not from Lagos, who don't live here, who live in some hamlet, in some village where they're so poor, they look at Lagos as if Lagos is London or New York, you know. But if you look at it objectively, based on what Lagos has as a foundation, this was the capital of the colonial empire in Nigeria. They put everything into this place. The whole of Nigeria built this Lagos. So Lagos has a big advantage, but it's not utilizing what it has. In spite of the huge internally generated revenue that we have, you see so much poverty in Lagos. Bad roads, no water, no electricity, you know, hunger everywhere, unemployment everywhere. So what have we done in Lagos? Lagos still, like you said, has not begun to touch the surface. We have a lot of problems. Part of the problem will be solved when there is autonomy for the states. This is how the United States was able to develop. So that this restructuring we're talking about, and let me tell you something, what the barrister said about the assembly having the authority to make laws, it fell short of what we are talking about. You cannot make laws and you don't have the facility to enforce the law. It's a joke. So this half measure was seized upon by the governors. Okay, you make the laws. What did they do in Benue? Governor Otom said, the state assembly said, no more open grazing. That was the law. How do they enforce it? They had to call the Inspector General of Police, who is controlled by the president. That's the restructuring we're talking about. No Inspector General of Police controlled by the federal government will do what you want in your state. He's going to take instructions from the federal government. That's the problem. So if you cannot enforce your law with your own police, with your own security apparatus, then you do not have the power. So what the barrister is saying is true, but it's only half measure. We have to take it all the way. In some cases, you will hear they will say, federal government will say, you can use your resources. No. You need to borrow money from abroad. You need to be able to raise a lot of funds, get international investors, get investors from this country. If you don't have the power to decide on what to do, investors will not come because they waste the investment.
We'll take a moment. When we come back, we'll dig in deep and anticipate it and draw this, towards Nigeria's coming election. For 23 years, going to the 24th year, Nigerians deserve better. How well are the candidates going for this election? Will be able to deliver some of those good that are missing at the moment is something that we'll unpack when we return. Join us again. Well, if you just joined us, you're welcome. You're watching Village Square Africa here on News Central Television, broadcasting live to 54 African countries and beyond. Now, looking at what Nigeria is celebrating at the moment, 23 unbroken years of democracy, and, well, at least 17 aspirants have emerged ahead of Nigeria's coming elections in 2023, with the four front runners expected to be Bwala Tinubu, Atiku Abubakar, Peter Obi, and Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso. Now, these candidates come with the usual pre-election issues of regions and competence, as highlighted by Tokunbo Pearse. He's talking about the qualities of those who can actually fix it as being yardsticks for voting Nigerian leaders. Now, the Northeast and Southeast are yet to produce a Nigerian president, and both regions have candidates pushing hard for Nigeria's biggest office. One of the issues battling Nigeria's democracy today is the concentration of power at the center, as highlighted again by Tokunbo Pearse, with regions expected to play a more prominent role in the development of the country and help improve the dividends of democracy. Nigeria has its challenges, peculiarities, and political struggles, and in a system of governance that has worked in many countries of the world and is still working in many others, not much has been seen in Nigeria, which is Africa's biggest population. Still with me live in the studio is Tokunbo Pearse, and in Nigeria's capital, Daniel Bwala. Daniel, let's start with you. You know, we're looking at some of the problems. We'll come back to see how we can proffer solutions. But now, the journey so far has taken us to the moment we've seen leading up to the primaries. Not enough time for us to talk about the delegate business, or the business of being a delegate in electing a candidate. But what do you expect? How can we reconnect our democracy with what it should be in the coming elections?
Well, it's interesting because so many things about these 2023 elections and the candidates that are representing the major political parties are symbolic and historic. The candidate of APC is Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The candidate of PDP is Atiku. Although we have other candidates like NNPP, where you have Kwankwaso, and then Labour, you have Peter Obi. But in particular, these two major parties, these individuals that are representing their respective parties are, and I believe for the first time since 1999, we are having true Democrats going to on the ballot, true Democrats. And what I mean by that is both of them fought the military. Both of them believe in pure democracy. Both of them believe in democratic governance. And from 1999, both of them have had this ambition of becoming a president. They are Democrats through and through. And so the build up to this 2023 election, I see is going to be issue-based campaign. Now, but what is more interesting is that these personalities are going to come with two philosophies. So, for example, the candidate of APC is going to project the message that we need a progressive ideology to move Nigeria forward. A progressive ideology that is hinged on equal opportunity, that is hinged on women's rights, that is hinged on the youth, that is hinged on diversity, and all of these other concepts that are related to progressive ideology. The candidate of PDP is going to come with the message that capitalism and free enterprise is the only way a country can grow and create jobs and employment. Both of these concepts are as important as they are projected. Which one best suits the situation of Nigeria is going to be what we need a campaign. Whether a country like Nigeria that has majority of the people below poverty first need a progressive government that will first bring them out of this through socialist policies, or without prejudice to the situation of Nigeria, they still need a capitalist-driven economy to be able to lift people out of poverty. And I believe that in the coming days, this is what is going to dominate our space. I only hope that the media will be as mature as you are, Mr. Sulaiman, where you elevate a conversation around things that matter to Nigeria rather than mundane things, rather than trivial things, rather than things that will not
sorry, I lost the visual, to you, Daniel, there. And just as while we wait for you to come back, let me bring this conversation to Tokunbo here. It's very instructive, and I'm happy you're also, a media practitioner. And he said something that is very key and germane, bringing it to our doorstep. And he's saying, sometimes we don't elevate the conversation. Sometimes we pander to some and allow the politician to dictate, the meat of the story. Now, before we get in there, he said something about the candidates, and I could sense you nodding to all of that. Now, let us in on some of the key things you think that these candidates will bring to the table, because, as he said, for the first time in a long time, we're having what he calls true Democrats going into a general election.
It's a good one that no military person is now running or got the ticket.
And it looks like the first time in a long while.
It is the first time, I believe, since 1999, I think.
Yes, because there's always been, after Obasanjo, there's always been Buhari in the mix.
Yes, well, he got the ticket of his party.
Yes.
Yes,
there's always been Buhari in the mix. So this is the first time none of the candidates has any background in the military.
I think I said it quite early in our discussion that I don't think the military has done us any good. I come from a military family background, and I know it's a last order. You listen to instruction, you can't discuss, you cannot. So yes, indeed, it's going to be exciting. It's going to be quite interesting. I think what we're going to make the difference, I will not say one philosophy is better than the other, but I like to suggest, I guess because of my respect for the American system, because I know how chaotic America would have been if not for the system they run. That is the most violent society, a more discriminatory society. I'm talking about racism and prejudice against women, prejudice against young people, all sorts of things. If it was not for the rule of law and enforcement of the rule of law and devolution of power to the states.
It comes back to regionalism, which you highlighted earlier on.
Restructuring, so that the states would have control over their resources, over their security, over employment, and so on and so forth. Key things in the lives of the people. So we'll see who will promote this in the two major candidates, Atiku Abubakar and Bwala Tinubu. I know Atiku has always been a man who promotes, who believes sincerely in restructuring Nigeria for equity, believes in the 2014 confab recommendations that there cannot be fairness, there cannot be peace if there's no justice. If the Southeast has only 5 states and the Northwest has 7 states, there'll never be peace. There'll never be peace in the Southeast. These things must be taken into serious consideration. And I believe in the power of capitalism, because before anything else, it's about the money. If the economy is not strong, you will not have peace, you will not have progress, the youth will suffer, the women will suffer, everybody will suffer. First, it's not that you do it in isolation. You must always consider fairness and equity and justice, progress, and so on. But a fundamental issue is the open market economy. We are in a capitalist system. If we were following another system, good. But since we're in a democracy, we're in a capitalist democracy, we must develop the economy. This is why I'm glad you said I'm a PDP stakeholder. So I'll tell you, maybe that's why I'm taking the position I'm taking. I believe that Atiku is the best person now. I think it will resonate with the people when they realize that we must develop the economy. If you free the states, if it was not for poverty of black people in America, they would not be the problem of America. the question of economic situation, you know what it is. What's happening in the northern states now with Boko Haram? You know, it is poverty that has enabled Boko Haram to recruit our young people in the north into the terrorist groups. So we must improve the economy. And once we do that, a lot of things will fall in place, I believe. So as we go into this election cycle and the two major candidates begin to talk, let us see. I think Nigerians are really ready. There's something else, they're ready for issues. But there's something else about politics. Leadership. Leadership begins with character. Not only what you want to do for me, but who are you? Where you have a candidate whose real name nobody knows, whose real age nobody knows, whose real state of origin nobody knows, whose parents nobody knows, who has had a record of being a fraudulent and crooked
let me bring in let me bring in Daniel here. Daniel has got an interest in first we talked about elevating conversation, and is getting messier by the minute. And I said, wait a minute, all of a sudden, someone once said, that's why I like us having this conversation here on VSA. You can actually have this conversation just like in a village square, in your traditional village setting. Now, someone said, if you want to know something, that never existed about you, or if you ever had a bad past, say, pick a firm, go into politics and run for an election. Then you get to know that you don't even know anything about yourself. So I wanted to speak to us about issues.
Right.
For Dr. Pearse, he said, apart from being a PDP member, he feels strongly about Atiku Abubakar. Now, let us in on...
Because of what it stands for.
Because of what it stands for. And I know Daniel also would want to let us in on what some of these candidates, what he thinks these candidates also stand for. Daniel.
Mr. Pearse had been making a very good argument until when he said, I'm a member of PDP, then he descended from issues to mundane and trivial issues. I don't know whether that is synonymous with the name PDP, because as soon as he mentioned PDP was when he started talking about, we don't know where somebody comes from, we don't know what his age is, we don't know what his health is. And these are things that are not important as far as the problems confronting Nigeria, which he has articulated very well in the course of our conversation and analyzed very well in the course of our conversation. Where is the age of one man with creating employment? Where is the village of one man with fighting insecurity? But I'm glad that I talked about Atiku. I have my greatest respect for Atiku, correct, because Atiku is someone who has demonstrated by his lifestyle and in the course of his governance as vice president, he believes in capitalism. I think when we talk about progressive ideology and capitalistic ideology, people tend to think we are saying that the progressive-minded people don't believe in growing the economy and the capitalists believe more in growing the economy. No, that's not the dividing line between these two ideologies. The dividing line between these two ideologies has to do with the focus. When the economy is grown or when you are developing the economy, where is the focus of the government? So, for example, a progressive-minded progressive-minded leadership focuses on a strong middle class. So what they do in the area of taxes, they tax the rich so that they will use the money and create a very strong middle class and help those who are below a certain level of the economic life in the country. So this is where you see some welfare system, socialist system. What I mean, like in APC, you see social investment program. They are progressive ideology. You don't see that in a capitalist economy, because in the capitalist economy, the rich should get richer, the poor can go to hell. So this is the distinctive difference between those ideologies. But both of them believe in a strong economy. Both of them believe in a progressive government. That is, the government must grow, the government must increase. So I said in the course of conversation, why that will be an issue to be sold to the Nigerian people is that when you come with a capitalist ideological concept or advocacy to the Nigerian people, you must not close your eyes from certain realities. that 80% of the Nigerian people are below the poverty line. How do you apply this capitalist tendency? You have to introduce certain social investment safety nets for the people to bring them out of poverty, because some of them have not even seen a clue of what you're talking about. Then the capitalists will argue and say, look, yes, we recognize the situation where they are in, but we still believe that the rich should continue. We should keep encouraging the rich by giving them tax holiday, by giving them all the tax benefits, so that we hope that they will create jobs. These are the distinctive difference between these two. Then these individuals that embody this ideology, they both believe in growing the economy. You can't say Asiwaju does not believe in growing the economy. When you look at Lagos, how he laid the foundation for a strong economy, his business is a proof. He believes in growing the economy. But he also believes in certain progressive ideology that we believe will resonate with the Nigerian people when this campaign and electioneering process commences. In the case of Atiku Abubakar, he believes it's in a strong economy that is market-driven and free enterprise. So in other words, the market forces should dictate. And in that kind of arrangement, it works in a society where they have attained certain reasonable development. Capitalist economy works perfectly. It runs with speed in those economies. But when you want to apply full-fledged capitalist ideology in a country like ours that 80% are below poverty level, then you're going to have to address certain key issues, whether or not that can be sold to the Nigerian people. You remember in the build-up to 2019 election, that was what he was accused of when he said he's not going to enrich his family, but he will enrich his friends. And then people begin to take that one back to his days as vice president and certain privatization programs. Now, Atiku is an incredible person that I believe will do perfectly well. The next president is between these two individuals, for sure. So this is what I'm saying.
Hold on. Did you say for sure? Because I'm quite sure you must have also heard or feel the buzz about Labour Party's candidate, Peter Obi. So when you say for certain is between these two, let us in on your thinking of the Labour Party.
So a few days ago, I posted on social media, I said, social media is the place where you have the greatest form of deception, where you can be deceived into thinking that your popularity in that space equals to the popularity in the real sense of the word. But the business of politics is that forever, politics will be the business of the grassroots. Peter Obi has largely been celebrated in the social media, has not been able to translate that into reality. There is nowhere in Nigeria apart from Anambra, Peter Obi can point at a structure that he has established. When we talk about structure, we're talking about human beings in places around the country that will build the bulwark of your campaign. He doesn't have that. And this kind of individuals, when they lose election, then they will now say it is rigged. But people who understand political science and how politics work, why did you think Asiwaju won our delegate election? Because over the years, Asiwaju built structures in the party. And you can contrast that with the vice president. Vice president was most popular, loved in social media, loved everywhere. But he did not have the structure. So when the chips are down, he didn't even come second. These are facts of life. And that is why I rule out Peter Obi. Besides, Peter Obi's influence is zeroed and limited to the Southeast. If you talk of Kwankwaso has elevated that to an extent. But Kwankwaso has flouted a new party that for now is only domiciled within the Northwest. So he cannot go beyond the Northwest, even though he has people. I am of the opinion, and if you look at the ideological belief system, you will know that Peter Obi belonged to PDP. He believed in strong economy driven by capitalism. And Kwankwaso, who believe in the Talakawas, has this progressive ideology. So they are like prodigal sons. But the way the things are constituted, I can tell you that most likely 2023 election, there will not be clear winner in the first ballot. It may require a runoff. 1983 might happen. And this is where these individuals in their party can be useful in collaborating with any party in alliance if a runoff is called. So that is why I rule them out, because of on the basis of analysis, on the basis of analytics, on the basis of realities. But we can choose, like people in social media, to live in a fantasy world. And in fact, 2 days ago, I was with Peter Obi here in Abuja at Transcorp. Very nice man, loved by people. Everybody wants to snap pictures with him. I contested politics in FCT. I knew my presence in social media. When the chiefs got down, it was people I had been meeting physically that showed up. This is how politics is done in Nigeria.
So before I come to Tokunbo, let me bring in that
Right.
very popular statement by Shatima. He said, well, by all means, good men don't make good leaders. They should be selling ice cream and popcorn. As laughable as that, is there any political sense in that?
Actually, that was supposed to be a jibe because it is not meant to be like a strong thing because what the vice president did after that statement was also to have his people meme that picture of him with ice cream and popcorn. In fact, when we came for the convention, they devoted a particular stand where they were distributing ice cream and popcorn. And they tried to also spin it to their advantage to say that, yes, he will sell ice cream. A good man sells ice cream and popcorn to make life better for people. Then somebody made a counter argument and said, popcorn and ice cream are only good for babies. Once you are of age, the doctor will tell you it is not good for your system. So there are things that are meant for jive. But in terms of election, if you are a politician, have you not noticed professors, doctors, once they come into politics, they do worse than average politicians. One is that they don't bring money. You see, Peter Obi is all over the world. He doesn't bring money. So, and what do you need the money for?
I think we're going to have this conversation again. Daniel, I'm sure we're going to bring it back to VSA as well as Tokunbo Pearse, because he needs to have his closing comments on the show because we're winding down. So what do we hope to see? You know, I'm happy that the issues are coming, you know, to the fore now. And you've just highlighted talking about some of the strong points of Atiku Abubakar. So in closing, what do you think will happen, you know, in 2023? Daniel has said there might be a runoff.
Look, first and foremost, there's no pure capitalism anywhere in the world. No pure socialism. In America, you have the Democratic Party always trying to balance things. That's the Progressive Party in America. So that's the kind of capitalist that Atiku is going to be. It can't be anything else in a country like this. There's no pure capitalism, even in the capitalist country of the world. That's the point. So the issue, so when I talked about Ashwaju, which appeared that I brought the conversation to a low level, I'm talking about character. And character is going to make a difference in this election, where people will say, do I trust you? Do I believe in what you are saying? You say you are progressive. Are you really progressive? Or you appearing to be progressive, selling a message on social media? Appearing to be. Who are you? Before we can give you our vote, this will also count. So that's another thing. The barrister talked about leadership. What is leadership? It's not just your ability to do the right thing. It's not your professional training alone. It is your personality as a human being. Who are you? Are you a family man? Are you trusted? Are you trusted? Do you believe in democracy? Huh? Democracy means equal opportunity for all. You don't make somebody a governor and then make him redundant. If he's beginning to perform, you remove him from office. Look, we are going to go on issues, but we are going to go on reality. We are going to look at character, behavior, your personality, what you've done, what you are as a person. If you're a tribalist, we don't want you to be president of Nigeria. If you're an economic illiterate, we don't want you to be, because we've seen it in this last president. So it's not only what you can do, it's not only your aptitude, not only your capacity to do the job,
absolutely,
but your person as a human being.
Well, Daniel, I opened the show with Dr. Pearse. So in 30 seconds, let's have your closing moment on this.
Right. So it's interesting that we are where we are. I celebrate that. I like the fact that Asiwaju is on the ballot for APC and Atiku is on the ballot for PDP, as well as the other contenders. And in the committee, it's going to be interesting. I'm sure that the Nigerian people are going to be opened up to understand what they believe in and decide on that. But my deepest and greatest prayer is that the media will also come to the level where they engage this candidate on issues rather than on sentiment.
Well, this is a fine
Just
place.
like the way you are doing very, very well.
Absolutely, and that's why I say I'd love to have you both come back to the square in the foreseeable future soon. A fine place for us to say many thanks for being such a nice company, Daniel Bwala, and of course Tokunbo Pearse. I'm Sulaiman Aledeh. Many thanks for watching.